Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. I haven't been able to stop thinking about lasagna noodles. They are super cheap and there are so many meals that you can make with these. I know Dollar Tree has these, so at first I was planning to make a Dollar Tree video, but then I realized I already have most of these ingredients in my house, so I just decided to just do a regular video and you guys can get the ingredients wherever you want. But I will say that the lasagna noodles are the least expensive at Dollar Tree. And just a quick disclaimer to let you know that this is an emergency budget only, and this is a cooking channel, so I'll be using basic pantry staples. I also suggest getting a bag of lentils from Dollar Tree, but I already had these in my pantry, so I'll just use these. I do get them cheaper in bulk, so hopefully you do as well. But we'll be using these. The cost of lentils at Walmart has drastically gone up, so it's definitely a time to be stocking up on those staples. Okay, then I have this garlic and herb Huntz pasta sauce. I thought I could use that in several of my recipes. Originally, I was thinking about this mixture of veggies. This is available at Dollar Tree and other stores, and I thought this would be great in a soup and also maybe in the pasta. But then I realized that I had all of these amazing sales going on at Wholesome Choice. I don't think I've ever seen tomatoes this cheap at 39 cents a pound. So I definitely want to pick up a couple of those. And then also I spotted some green beans that were $1.39 a pound. So I thought I might be able to squeeze a few of those in. And understandably, it's always a bit of a zoo in the store, but here are the tomatoes that I got. And I was super happy about this purchase. Those were 28 cents. And then I picked up this okra. I only got 3 because I didn't know how much this was going to be, but they were only 3 cents, which is only a penny each. And they weren't even on a great sale. They were actually $2.99 a pound. So I just wanted to point that out because you never know what you can do with just a few pieces of okra. And then I got these green beans for 17 cents. And I thought those would make a great addition. And then I picked up this zucchini. It wasn't on any special kind of deal, but it was 40 cents. So basically, I got all of the fresh ingredients for the cost of the can. And I do realize I got an amazing price on the tomatoes. So if you want, just go ahead and sub in a can of tomatoes or whatever vegetables are on sale where you live. Or you can just omit the tomatoes from the recipes and they'll still turn out very good. So costs are going to be around $5 for this haul, depending on where you get your ingredients. And then here are just some of the items that I thought I could make with this haul. This 16-ounce bag of lentils that I have makes 13 servings. And the one at Dollar Tree makes 10 servings. So I think that the one at Dollar Tree is perfect for the amount of recipes that I'm making. So if you have a Dollar Tree, probably just go ahead and get all of your ingredients there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and clean this and rinse it really good until the water runs clear. Basically, I do this the same way I do my rice. And then I'm going to cook these until they are just done. Not mushy, but not firm either. I need to try to make this pasta sauce last throughout all of my meals, and I know it's not going to work in everything, so I'm going to have to come up with some other solutions. And for the zucchini, I was thinking about adding some of this to a lasagna and then also making some zucchini roll-ups. And I might also cut a piece off of the end and just grill it for one of my meals, just as a side. So I'm going to have to cut this fairly thin. I'm going to use the okra in a soup, and then I'll also use the green beans as a side, and I'll use a small amount of the green beans in the soup as well. And then I'm going to use one of these tomatoes in the soup, and then one of them, I'm not sure yet. I might use it if I need some extra sauce, or I might slice them. I'm not really sure. And then the noodles from Dollar Tree are no boil noodles, so you can just put them in the pan and bake with them, which is nice because you don't have to go through the trouble of boiling. If you're using this grocery haul to get 9 meals, you want to make sure to only use 2 noodles per serving. And that's actually really easy to do when you do the lasagna roll-ups, which I'll show you later. And since I'm trying to make this tomato sauce stretch further, I added a little bit of water, and I'm going to add some more seasonings and let this simmer for a while. I just added a small amount of oil in here, but if you are struggling to afford food, then go ahead and be as generous as you'd like with the oil. Oil is an important source of fat and also calories. And obviously, more oil is going to taste even better. It's just I have quite a bit of other foods and other sources of fat during the day that I'll be eating. If you have a mandolin, you can use that to make some super thin slices. Typically, I would rather have larger, thicker slices in my lasagna and then the very, very thin slices for the roll up, because if they're too thick, they won't roll up. I'm taking out the 4 best pieces to use for my zucchini roll ups. And then I'm going to salt these like you would eggplant, just so that I can pull out some of the water in here so that I don't have watery lasagna. And also it's going to make these a lot more pliable for my zucchini roll-ups. And while those are sitting, I'm going to check in on my marinara. It has been simmering for a while now, and that tastes exactly the way I wanted to. I'll add a thin layer on the bottom and then start stacking my items. And basically what I'm doing is, it is the weekend. I'm meal prepping about 5 meals today. We do have enough ingredients for 9 meals, but I'm doing 5 today. And then I'm going to do some soups for the remainder of mine. And of course, I would love to know if you guys have any additional ideas of what you would do with these ingredients. I was thinking that you could make some lentil fritters. That's another idea. I've made those before, like the little lentil patties. You can use those like a hamburger. You could make sloppy joes. You could even make like a kind of a version of a sloppy joe lasagna. I know it sounds weird, but the taste, I can imagine it in my mind, and I think would taste good. I'm kind of thinking of a mix of that Cincinnati chili, with those kind of seasonings in there. I'm trying to be kind of sparing with this marinara. You can see how much water came out of the zucchini. And I might have been able to get away without draining the zucchini for the lasagna. However, it was important to do that for the roll-ups, just to get that pliability. And I'm not wasting any bit of the zucchini, even the small pieces that I trimmed off, I'm adding back in. And I am almost out of the marinara in the pan. However, I do have some in the can I can use if I need to, but I'm trying to use as little as possible so that I have some to help season a soup. And I've never made these before, but it's a great idea to use these for anyone that's on a low carb diet. You could always add ground beef here, and I'm wondering if I should have these like this or like this. Actually, I think that's the way I want to do it. And I'm realizing as I'm rolling these that the best way to do this is to place the lentils on the entire wrap. So I'm just going to redo this one because obviously there's not going to be a ton of calories in this, so we want to get as many lentils into this as possible. You know, you could also just roll this up inside a lasagna noodle. So that would be a way, I think, to make it heartier with the ingredients that we have. And now I'm going to boil some lasagna noodles, and for this dish I'm not going to use a marinara. I was thinking of either making like a garlic sauce, like an Alfredo sauce, except without the cheese, which I could easily do with some flour and make a roux, or I could just use some leftover vegetable broth that I already have in the fridge and make like a vegetable based sauce. So that's what I'm gonna do. And for that, I'm gonna just cook these until they're just tender enough to roll up, because I will also be baking these. And here's the amount of sauce that I've got left over. It's not much, but I think it'll go a long way in the soup. Okay, and here's the jar of the bouillon that I had left over from when I made that mushroom risotto. I was thinking on this one, had I had more time and energy, I probably would have made a paste with these lentils, and I could have done that by just throwing these in the blender or using a hand mixer with them. I think it would have made the roll-ups much nicer. So now I'm going to make the sauce, and again, this was made with vegetable bouillon, but if you have chicken bouillon, whatever it is that you like to use, go ahead and use that. And then I used some cornstarch mixed in with some water, and make sure it's either cold or room temperature water. And then I just added this in until I got to the desired consistency. And don't be afraid to add some seasonings to your bouillon. I'm just sprucing it up a bit with some pepper, some onion powder, and then just a touch of garlic powder. And this tastes fantastic. And I'm just showing you how many lentils I have. I ended up having so many lentils that I really didn't need that big of a bag. After I rolled all of these, I added some extra sauce onto the top, and then just a sprinkle of some dried parsley to give it a little visual interest. And then I popped that into the oven. So here are all of the green beans that I have, and I separated them into 5 bunches, and then I added an extra one for some soup. And then I cut them up. I'll just be adding a small amount to each meal. And even though it seems like a tiny amount, when you're eating it, it feels so luxurious. And I'm seasoning these with some garlic salt. And the leftover lentils are going into the fridge. Here is the lasagna and the roll-ups. Okay, for the lasagna, if you had some cheese, then obviously you should sprinkle that on top, and that will be delightful. But I made mine without cheese because this is an extreme budget video. And this one with the vegetable sauce smells delicious. I'm gonna go ahead and put these into individual containers. I had to let the lasagna sit for a bit. And these are gonna be my meals for the week. Anything with beans in it, I try to eat within 2 to 3 days. If not, it goes in the freezer. And I usually like to mix my food up, so I decided to go with 2 zucchini rolls and 1 lasagna roll for one of my meals. And then basically the lasagna, I'm going to be able to get 2 servings. So I was thinking that this would be 5 servings. However, I will say that when I ate these, I realized that the zucchini roll-ups just were not filling enough. So I think that if you're going to do this menu, you should add a lasagna noodle to the zucchini roll-up to make it more filling. Because I could have easily eaten 4 of those roll-ups and still wanted more. And I put lots of sauce in this one here just to try to make sure that the noodles don't dry out. And this is tonight's dinner for me, and I started by trying the zucchini roll-ups. And the flavor on these were really good, but I wasn't a huge fan of the texture, and the green beans were fabulous. Even if you had a little bit of cheese to sprinkle over the lentil roll-ups, I think that that would have added a lot to the texture. Or like I said earlier, just adding a lasagna noodle, but they just are very, very light. And they didn't feel like enough substance for me for dinner. Okay, these guys though, I loved the ones with the vegetable broth. Those were delicious. When I first tried all of these, I thought that my favorite was the one with the vegetable broth. Those were so tasty, and I haven't always been a big fan of marinara, but the lasagna fares really well as leftovers. It just reheats nicely, and it's just as good as when you first made it. And I will say that adding the zucchini into the lasagna made such a big difference than if I would have just made it without it. And I was kind of upset with myself because I was thinking I would have liked to have had a slice of tomato and then maybe also add a slice of the okra in there. Sometimes if you don't cook it properly, it gets a little bit slimy. So I thought I would just add the okra into the soup. But in retrospect, seeing what a difference just adding those slices of zucchini made for that lasagna, it's making me wish that I would have doubled up on the other veggies. Okay, I did love the one with the vegetable sauce. However, I will say that it didn't reheat as nicely as the lasagna. And here is my lunch at work one day, and I did have some cheese at home. I think it's a Parmigiano Reggiano, and I just add a little bit to the top of this. And of course, that elevated it even further, but it is delicious without the cheese as well. And I just wanted to stop and say that you could add this cheese in for just a couple bucks, and it would be 9 meals for $7, and it would be fantastic. It's super filling, and it makes a great freezer meal. And for my next recipe, I'll use the ingredients in this haul to make a lasagna soup, and we'll use the lentils for protein. So I went ahead and cut up everything that I have. I'm only cutting up one of the tomatoes, but I still have the other one. I don't think I'm going to need it at this point, and I'm only going to be using 2 of the noodles. I'll be making enough soup for 2 servings, but I only want to cook 2 of the noodles now that I'll be eating in my lunch today because I don't think that they would fare well sitting in the fridge overnight. So what I thought I would do is just only cook the noodles that I want to eat in today's lunch. Oops, it looks I have a little end in here I need to pick out. Anyway, then I'll just use the broth tomorrow to make the same soup, and I'll cook my noodles tomorrow. But if you're just cooking for 2 people or you're making a bigger serving size, then just don't worry about it. But I am just cooking for myself, and I don't want to have soggy noodles, so I think that this is going to work best for me. I'm going to add some smoky paprika to this, but it is going to add a little bit of heat Don't add it if you don't want any heat or extra spice into your soup, but it does sound good to me today. And I don't always add in cumin to my soups, but with the ingredients I have today, it just sounded really good to me. So I'm just putting a very small amount. Just wanted to have the tiniest hint of cumin. I think I somehow edited out the shot where I added salt, but I did add salt to this, so don't forget to add it to yours. And next I'm adding in some oil. Add as much as you want and use whatever the best oil that you can afford is. But I really do think it makes a big difference in the soup. And this is simmered for a little while, and so now it's time to add in the lasagna noodles. And I'm just using 2 because that's the serving size that I want for today for my soup. If you're trying to do an extreme budget, then you could get by with using 2 of these noodles. Obviously, if you have more money and you can, then you can obviously use more, but just trying to make these recipes for people that happen to find themselves in a pinch and needing to use a small amount of ingredients to get by. And hopefully it's just a very temporary situation. I do suggest serving this with some bread. You could bake some bread for super cheap or buy some very inexpensive bread like the loaf from Walmart for $1. I think that would be great. Just cut off a chunk of that and that would bulk up the calories and make this even more filling. So on this, I had to be careful. I wanted to slightly undercook the noodles because I'm packing this in my thermos, and so they'll continue to cook. And I wanted to make sure that they're not soggy. And then you could add as many lentils as you want to boost up the protein and calories, but I think that this is just about right for me. Obviously, if you want to add some bouillon to yours, you can, but I loved the flavor on this. I got all the seasoning I needed just from those spices that I added in, and the vegetables and the tomato as well. And I know it's going to be even better when I eat it for my lunch. And as I'm dipping this up, I'm making sure that I get all of the lasagna noodles because I want the broth that's remaining to be lasagna free. And then tomorrow when I eat the soup again, I'll boil my noodles right before eating it. And some people have asked me about this container. It's actually a Hydro Peak. And I think I got this at one of the discount stores. I don't know if it was Ross or somewhere like that, but it is 25 ounce, which I find to be perfect for my soups. It's the right size for me. You might want it bigger, you might want it smaller. That's up to you. I will try to find some about the same size to link in my video, and if that, just in case that helps anyone. And here was my lunch. I actually really look forward to this and I enjoyed it. If you make this soup, just make sure to break your noodles into small enough pieces. I had a few noodles that were way too large, but I did just use my spoon and break them up. But next time I make this, I'll make sure to break them into smaller pieces. I would definitely make this lunch again. It was filling, it had the protein in there, and there was also the protein in the lasagna noodles. So I thought this was very delicious. Thanks so much for watching, friends. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. I'll see you next Sunday.
Morning has broken, my windows are open. Wanna feel the wind blow through my hair. Which way do I follow? What happens tomorrow? I turn to you and hope you can guide the way. Sometimes I give up, just wanna be on my